If we all can have our seats, we can go ahead and get started with the Ways and Means Committee meeting. I say with the meeting. Okay. We have called to order, and we have, I need a motion and a second for the approval of the minutes for August 28th, 2023. Matt Windish and Miss Sharon Williams, thank you. All those, any questions, comments, changes? Okay, all those in favor say aye or aye. Okay. All those opposed? There are none. The ayes have it. Okay. In moving on to our budget for the Ways and Means Committee, I need a, first of all, we will, in doing our budget for each department, we'll take one vote for every one of those when we can get to the end. But I need a motion and a second to bring the Ways and Means budget to the floor for discussion. Ms. Sharon Williams and Terry Rowland. Okay. Starting out, any questions, comments?
So, Madam Chair, we've got a brief slide deck to give a high-level summary for you and the committee if you'd like.
Thank you.
All right. So, committee members, you can follow along on the screens. You can also refresh your iPad if you have it in front of you, and it'll show up there as well. Just for those of you that aren't in Infrastructure Committee, this year's cover photo is Cedar Hills Drive. From the perspective of where the photo was taken, you're standing in Mr. Elsasser's district looking at Mr. Ricker's district. Off the distance, very nice fall photo. Across all funds this year, we have sources and uses of funds. You can see that we have $150.6 million in sources. Our largest portion of that is intergovernmental revenues, roughly, a third, a little bit more than a third of our total revenues or sources. And property taxes are our third largest source of revenue. On the use side or the expenditure side, it's $154,900,000, or just a shade under 900,000. And you can see that our largest expense is our workforce, wages, benefits, pensions, and the like, and everything that they do for us. We talked a little bit about property taxes being the third largest source of revenue. The recommended rate is 82.41 pennies per $100 of equalized assessed value. That is flat, as has been long-standing policy direction from the board, is to keep that rate flat. When you apply that rate to all of the taxable property in Peoria County, that means that we are going to have a recommended levy of $34,342,000 and change. That is going to be an increase over what was levied in the current year, and that's because property values have increased by 6.7% across the entire county. Other areas it has increased more, some areas less. As an example, the city of Peoria, I believe, is going up by 7%, or just a shade more than 7%. The pie chart that you see, the blue and the gray shaded pie wedges represent all of our operating funds. The yellow and tan represent pension-related funds that have property taxes in them. We typically also would maybe have a third color in the pie wedge that would be for debt service, but there is no property tax being levied in our debt service fund this year. Yes, Huntington Oaks is a property tax supported fund. It's technically an operating fund, but we use those revenues in the operating fund to make a debt service payment on the nursing home bonds, but it is not classified as a debt service fund. Looking at what this committee has direct oversight of, There are 6 departmental budgets that report to this committee. They total just a shade under $5 million in revenues and a little bit more than $4.3 million in expenditures. And you can see them here on the bar charts. How does the Ways and Means Committee compare to the entire budget? Well, you have oversight of 3% of the revenues and 3% of the expenditures. And those are shown in the tan-colored pie wedges. We always show, especially in a committee that has general fund departments in their oversight, of which you do, we show the entire general fund in its totality. You can see here that is a balanced budget at $56,770,000 and change. Our largest revenue stream in the general fund, which is our general corporate fund, is intergovernmental revenues. That includes sales taxes, income tax, personal property replacement tax, salary reimbursement, and the like. It is roughly half of all of the revenues in the general fund. It also means that the general fund can sometimes be subject to changes in the economy as sales taxes and income taxes and the like can fluctuate as the economy fluctuates. On the uses side, or the expenditure side, you can see that roughly 60% or thereabouts of the uses in the general fund are again related to personnel costs, wages, and benefits. In terms of this committee's oversight of the general fund budget, you have 7% of the revenues and 6% of the expenditures. So at a very high level, Madam Chair, that's the summary for the committee. A couple things just to highlight beyond what was in the slide deck. First, on behalf of myself, thank you to all the elected and appointed officials that report to this committee and all the others that worked diligently for their part of the budget process. Acknowledgement and appreciation for Heather and the entire finance team that put this book together. If you recall, we implemented a new enterprise finance software in January called Munis. And then this year we also implemented a new software piece called Pattern Stream. Pattern Stream is actually, it talks to Munis and is what actually produced the budget book this year. So new process for us. There were some minor hiccups along the way, but we have a nice little list of improvements that we're going to be making over the course of the year, so that when we start the budget process next year, we'll be able to implement those changes, and it will be ideally a little bit smoother for everyone involved. Happy to answer yours and any of the committee's questions about the recommended budget.
Okay. Are there any questions, comments, particularly to Scott or myself or the board? Okay. Again, yes, I say thank you, Heather, and your team for an excellent job. I appreciate what you've done. One of the things that I might have mentioned to you already, that I spoke of the quality. It may seem minimal to some, but the quality of the pages, it's a different texture, and it makes it, I feel, the report more valuable, worth, you put emphasis on the writing, the numbers, the documents, but the quality of the papers makes a difference. It says we are important. What you all have to say is important as well. But so thank you all. And then Scott, I believe you might have touched a bit on this as you making your presentation. When I brought to his attention when we speak of, for example, the interest income, and you think of the difference in the last year's 2023's budget, and as well as the change for this year, 24 coming up, and I saw where there was, for example, 1,070.4% change, And so I asked, what, I've never seen that. Maybe it's been there, but I've never paid much attention to it. So I asked Scott and Shauna if they would kind of expound on that information.
Sure thing, and thanks for singling out interest income, because that gives me an opportunity to recognize the county treasurer and the work that she's doing in the investment role of her position, her elected office. To put it mildly, she is absolutely killing it as it relates to interest income. Part of it is we have more cash on hand, and part of it is her investment strategies and the interest rates that she's able to secure with those investment strategies. So just as it relates to how you might read the book, and this will be consistent with wherever you might be in any of the tables in the book, the dollar change from 23 to 24 is always going to be between what was adopted and what is recommended. So if you'll see multiple columns in all the tables, there's a 23 adopted and a 24 budget. The 24 budget column is what's recommended, and if you compare those two numbers, that is the dollar change between 23 to 24. It's also the percentage change from 23 to 24. So just a little note on how those numbers come to be, and we're again happy to answer any other questions of the committee.
Any other comments, questions? Okay. Well, let's put this to the vote. And again, like I mentioned, we will be voting on every department as one under the budget. All those in favor, say aye. All those opposed? There are none. We have it approved, ready to go to the board for approval by the board. Okay, let us move on to informational items. And I first like to comment, I believe two of our people, the VA group and the election group, both have been notified that your presentations will be coming up. Elizabeth, yours in October, and Mike, yours in November. And again, no presentations today. We always look forward to that, but none today. We'll focus just on our budget for today. Going forward, I'd like to hear from Rachel Parker, our county clerk office.
Good afternoon. You all have a copy of the report that was submitted in your packet, and unless you have any questions, there's nothing I need to add to that.
Any questions, comments for Ms. Parker, Mrs. Parker, or comments? There are none.
Okay.
Thank you.
I would just like to tell you that our directory, we got the mock-up of it this morning. So it should be going to print now that we've signed off on it. So we should have those for the next committee meeting, and I'll bring some extra up here for you all to have to take to some of your constituents if they should need it. But it's the directory,
Yes.
which lists all of that good information that everybody refers to throughout their time.
And just to let you know, the ones from last year that you had, people were asking me for them. So I thank you for those. I was able to hand those out and then more.
I think this was the first time we actually got rid of all that we ordered.
Yeah.
Because we pushed them to, all the different locations.
Yes.
Just kept them at the counter all the time so that we never, had to have anyone ask us for them. So
Yeah.
we did good this go round.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. Okay, may we hear from Ms. Gannon, from the County Election Commission?
Hello, thank you. I would like to report, it was brought to my attention that no, we do not have an election in the fall. Someone was just asking me about that. There is no election in the fall in odd years. In odd years, all the elections are in the spring. So our next election will be the 2024, the March primary, and then the November general. But with respect to that, we are working hard to recruit election judges going into 2024. We have done a mailing to uh, targeted areas throughout the county that have voters that have voter turnout. They consistently vote, so they are involved in the process. And so we're reaching out to them, targeting them, asking them to serve as election judges. We have another open house this Saturday that is by invitation, but we are hoping to have around 30 people come.
Great.
And it's just informational. We go over the duties of an election judge, what's expected of you, what you can expect. And so hopefully our last one was very successful. We had, I think, 10 people sign up, which is great. We're at forward motion. We are also beginning to reach out to our high schools. Juniors and seniors in good standing can serve as election judges. We have set an internal goal for ourselves to have at least 5 students from each high school and a total of 100 student judges for 2024.
Great.
We are also tomorrow, I don't know if you've seen that. Gretchen just put out the press release for me this morning, but
Yes.
there is several counties will be participating in a voter integrity press conference tomorrow. So we're all just trying to come together and get information out there and get ahead of the curve, hopefully,
Great. Great.
and stay on top of that as we move into such a big election cycle.
Great. Is that a first time that would happen? That has happened? All of the various counties come together?
So many, yes. I've never had a press conference that has. I think there's 26 counties that are being represented, and we're having 4 different press conferences over the next 2 days. I will be attending the one tomorrow morning in Tazewell County, but there are 3 other ones throughout the state that they're going to coordinate. But we have had last election year, I think it was 2022, Woodford County, Tazewell County, and myself, we did a joint press conference, but never to this scope, which I
Great.
think is amazing.
Yes, for sure. Yeah.
But that's all I have. If you
Okay.
have any other questions for me.
Any other questions? I do have one other. Anybody else? Yeah. In regards to the election judges, is that an ongoing process even after the elections, or is it just the training, the informational? Is it just during the election time period?
That we use election judges, or that we
that training, yeah.
Sure.
And,
So
and that you
when you-
use election judges.
when you sign up to be an election judge, it's actually a 2-year commitment.
Okay.
So it's every election within that 2-year cycle. We train prior to each election. Just there's so much information that you're
I would
expected to
think.
know.
Yeah.
So we do give trainings prior to each election. We also are offering online training, so they can, that is mandatory, but they can go back and refresh prior to, when they get closer to the election and
Okay.
refresh through that online training. But it is a 2-year commitment. You're sworn in by Jenny takes care of all that for me. So, but yes, they were just sworn in last summer in 2023. So they
Okay.
will go through 2025.
Great. Okay. That's good news. Good info. Any other questions, comments? Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, next I'd like to hear from Mr. Ryan from the Supervisors of Assessments.
Thank you, Betty. What you probably saw is we sent out over 84,000 assessment notices.
You
So
got
we've
mine.
taken a lot of calls on that. And by law, we've got to publish all of those in the newspaper. So we did that. I also held a presentation at ICC just to go over the process. And we accomplished that. And there was also a brief press release in the newspaper. If you saw that, that was also in
Yes.
there. So we tried to get as much information out as possible on it. We've got a lot of phone calls, quite a few phone calls. We don't have very many actual formal complaints filed yet. Most of the phone calls are just wanting information on basically why they're receiving it, why did it go up so much, et cetera. So that's what most of our phone calls
Great.
are on. But absent of that, we've been pretty busy the last few weeks, so hopefully it will slow down a little bit. October 13th will be our deadline to file a board review complaint, so Typically, we get a lot of those the last couple days, so
Mm.
we'll be probably getting quite a few of those. But other than that, if anybody's got any questions.
So far you're seeing that it's going pretty good right now. More or less, you'll start getting calls closer to that October date.
Yeah, we got a lot of calls, obviously, when they first went out.
Okay.
Quite a
Yeah.
few calls. Most of them were actually pretty good. I mean, most of them were, as I said, were questioning an increase, but a lot of times they're saying, well, I could probably sell my house for more than what you have it assessed at. So a lot of times they didn't go through with obviously filing any type of formal complaint, but they're just wanting information.
Sure, that makes sense. Questions, comments? Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay, I'd like to hear now from Ms. Bierke in regards to our treasurer's report.
Thank you. On September 20th, we did our fourth distribution, and that distribution was a little over $105.5 million. So we have now distributed 89% of what was levied, which is approximately what was distributed is $299 million to approximately 150 different taxing districts in
Okay.
Peoria County. The trustee auction that ended August 25th, and that's what the monthly resolutions that you receive, that's what that is part of. And so there were 66 parcels that were sold in that auction. It was a sealed bid auction that resulted in a little over $97,000 that will now be distributed to the taxing districts,
Great.
which is money that they had not received and would not have received without this auction. There was the city of Peoria decided they were going to buy some of these properties from the trustee. There was a little bit of an issue, so they decided they were going to go a different route, and so we now have another auction, which is ending November 3rd. We haven't got the catalog yet, but the signs are out. There's about 46 properties within the city of Peoria that are going to go to auction. That auction ends November 3rd, which is also the last day to pay taxes, so that'll be a little interesting. And the very, very good news is last month I had told you we had an unexpected resignation in my office, and we have since hired someone, and she started today, and we are really excited.
Great.
So
Yeah.
I will answer any questions if there are any.
Any questions, comments? I have one in regards to that delinquent taxes. You know, you mentioned the city was purchasing quite a bit of the property there. What is the reason for the increase? There's such a high number, 140 items, is it? For that delinquent tax? Well, there's 140, but I didn't
Oh.
count how many.
On the monthly resolution?
Yes, on the monthly resolution.
Yeah, the city of Peoria has a land bank, and so that land bank, the goal is to obtain some of these dilapidated properties that have dangerous structures on them, or they've had demos done on them, and so they haven't sold from the trustee in an auction. The neighbors don't want the property. Sometimes the neighbors think that their taxes are going to increase if they get that property, which is not necessarily the case. If it does go up, it's just dollars. So the city of Peoria is acquiring some of these to put them together for a developer eventually. So the developer will come in and basically kind of rehabilitate that area and put it back on the tax rolls.
Good, that's good. Any comments, questions? Thank you. Yeah, good. Okay, Mr. Brooks, Veterans Assistance Commission.
Four of us attended continuing education last week in East Peoria. That's the annual training that we have to keep our accreditation for doing VA disability claims. We set all kind of records for the month, mostly because PACT Act had to be turned in, claims had to be turned in by August 14th. So we broke pretty much all our records, intent to files, power of attorneys, fully developed claims. We had 424 veterans walk in the office, and we do most of our work by digital signature. So 3,435 calls because it never stops. But we're working on trying to get a better system for the phone calls. Brought in 6.2 million just in the month of August, and then we're 55 million for the year, and then 8.1 million for new money or lump sum money. So we're going to shatter everything from last year. So that's all I've got though.
It was that increase, is that normal for this time of the year?
No.
Uh,
No, because we do mostly, like I said, everything by digital signature now, unless it's the first time you're coming to our office.
I see.
So pre-pandemic, we had in the 400s, not quite that many, but we were more around 250 veterans walking in after the pandemic. But it's going to keep. We're going to probably be in 400s again this month, just because you still have to file the claims. We only had to file the intent to file, which saves the data claim. So we have a year to get all the rest of the paperwork in. So for the next year, buckle up. We're going to be there. And to answer your question from last month, I remembered right before I came here, there is no Meals on Wheels program just for veterans. It's just for everybody.
So you just refer them to
Correct.
a program if they ask
Correct,
about it.
yes. Now, social workers at the VA might help them out and do stuff like that, but there's nothing specific, though.
Okay. Have you seen a need for an increase in your workload, the employees, because of the workload? Or
Well, we have one VSO on a medical, so definitely.
yeah, okay, that makes a
but
difference.
luckily, the person that we hired this year was already accredited, so he's jumped right in and taken those
Great, makes
cases
a
over.
difference.
But it was, yes, we're trying to really adjust schedules so we have more time to catch up and stuff like that. Like Fridays, we have the second part of Fridays to catch up to get ready for the next week. So.
Yeah. Any questions, comments? Yes, Mr. Dillon.
Chairwoman Duncan. Mike, so is that increase in traffic an increase in money returned due
Oh,
to?
yeah.
But is that due to, was it last year when you talked about burn pits and other
Yes,
things?
that's
the federal
PACT Act.
government?
Yep. So, but then I said last month, I think you had stepped out, but PACT Act never actually ends. It was just the August 14th date was the 1 year, or the intent to file, and we have 1 year. So you can, let's say, give you an example for hypertension for Vietnam veterans. You can always file it, but if you had filed it before October 14th or August 14th, it would go back 1 year to the date of the law. So that's, PACT Act is never going to end. They're probably going to keep adding stuff, just like Agent Orange did. So the PACT Act never goes away, just the back pay, the lump sum to last year.
Okay. I do have one other question.
Sure.
In regards to your office, and then that's in an administration office out in Grand Prairie.
So the
What are they
VA out
connected?
in Grand Prairie is healthcare.
Oh, that is
Yeah,
healthcare.
they do the healthcare.
Strictly
There's-
healthcare.
There's another one close by called the Vet Center, which is
Yes.
counseling only for combat veterans, and MST, which is military sexual trauma. And then there's a state office downtown
Okay.
that does mostly state benefits.
Yes. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions, anybody? Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Being that there's no more information, no questions or comments, let us move on to our resolutions. And we have one, which is the monthly delinquent taxes. And as I mentioned earlier, there were 140 items. I think we kind of commented that Mr. Dillon, Chairman Dillon, will have quite a few to sign this time. But what I would need to do is get I need a motion and a second in order to bring this to the floor. From Mr. Couch and Mr. Windish. Thank you. Okay, any questions, comments in regards to our monthly delinquent taxes? Okay. So let us vote. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. And those opposed? And there are none, and so this resolution has passed. Moving on to our miscellaneous. Any miscellaneous? There are none. Okay. I noticed I did not ask for public comments. Any public comments if we want to? No. Okay, this meeting is adjourned.